It's time! It's time! You like that? You like that? Woo!
It's waxing lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mainz and Dutts. I'm your host, Mainz, and my colleague in the danger zone in Rainford. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
We're back.
We took a break for Thanksgiving to eat turkey and not do the show, but here we are. Week 13 is upon us, and we are here, coming in your ears, as they used to say in the olden days.
Indeed. Not much to add to that.
This week, we continue How to Fix the Franchises, this week with an NFC edition. I also had some questions on my mind that I would like to discuss with Neil. We will recap fantasy darlings, losers, and predictions bound to go wrong for week 11, and then give you our picks for this week. Looking forward to that. Without further ado, let's get on with the show and let's get on with the main event.
Time now for the main event.
Tweaks are a full blown up. We did this for the AFC. Now we're doing the NFC edition. We'll give our thoughts on what we think these franchises should do and why we think they should do them. Let's start with one of the biggest franchises in the NFL and one of the most popular, and that's the Green Bay Packers. Struggling big time at the moment. If you were fixing this franchise, Neil, what would you do?
This is a tough one. This is probably the toughest of all the NFC teams, certainly, because they are financially committed to their quarterback. He's not going anywhere, presumably. They're not going to bench him. They're not going to sit him down. They're not going to bring on Jordan Love willingly, as long as Aaron Rodgers is drawing breath. So this is a tough one. The obvious change that we're going to see, very similar to what the Cleveland Browns will do. They will fire the defensive coordinator very, very quickly after the season, because you cannot allow yourself to be dominated as if you're the Akron Zips playing against the 1970s Oklahoma Sooners and give up 360 rushing yards. It just doesn't wash. Not in the modern NFL. It's not going to fly. The defense has been a massive disappointment. Their offense has been, I think most people predicted their offense wouldn't be good, just mainly because you can't take Devontae Adams out of something that was hanging by a thread and expect it to get better. They're showing some signs of life in the last few weeks, especially young Watson is coming on. He's catching touchdowns. He's not putting up monster yardage totals. Touchdowns, as we know, are something of a team stat and a little bit fluky. So it's hard because any rebuild you want to do has to, by definition, be a short-term rebuild, because you don't really know how long Aaron Rodgers is going to be there for. So you're going to have to rebuild on the fly for the Rodgers era or the remainder of it, and then you're going to have to rebuild again when he goes. So this is a tough one, and I don't envy them at all.
I would play Jordan Love for the rest of the season for two reasons, really. One, I don't need Aaron Rodgers to play. I know what Aaron Rodgers can do, and we're not making the playoffs. Two, I need to see what value Jordan Love is, either to me or to someone else. Now, if I find out that it's no value, that's fine. But I do need to understand what I have there, I think. At the start of the season, everyone said this, as you said, in relation to the defense. Everybody said this defense was going to be incredible. It's terrible. I think they played the Manders, and like didn't stop them on third down like ever. Like this is just unheard of. You know, there'll be talk of trades with Aaron Rodgers in the offseason, I assume. I don't think it happens. They do need to get better on talent, though. On offense, especially, it's just not great. Like it's just they've got to got away with it. It's inverted commas in relation to having Devontae Adams for a period of time. But they haven't got him anymore, and they haven't really replaced him. And Watson's done okay, and yeah, Watson's done well actually. Sorry, and yeah, touchdowns are not sticky, but catching the ball is, and he's got better at that. And catching the ball far down the field, he's got better at. I just look at the team and think, do I honestly believe that a change of defensive coordinator and another skill player who they won't use free agency on is going to turn this from a, I don't know, 6-11 team to a 11-6 team? I'm not sure. They might be done in this, guys, and then next season becomes the full blow up concept.
When we've talked in the past about windows, this team won, what was it, 13 games in 3 straight seasons, but didn't win the Super Bowl. Your window closes.
Yeah.
And you don't always get you have 13 wins, or it might go down to 11 or 10. Oh, it's going to go to 8, 7. No. If that window slams shut and your fingers are in between the blades, you're going to get cut. That's how quickly it can shut. And this is why when you catch fire, you have to cash in. And they didn't.
Correct. Let's stay in the division and go to the Chicago Bears. Probably ends up with a worse record than the Green Bay Packers, but do you feel a little bit better about them and the direction they're going in?
Yes, because I think the blueprint is there for what they need to do. Other teams have done it. If you have a promising, raw quarterback, you make sure that while he's still on that rookie deal, you break the bank to put pieces in place around him. So spend up in free agency, stock up the talent, the young talent in the draft to grow with him. But if you can give him a playmaker on offense, then straight away you make your offense better. He doesn't have to run as much. He's not going to get hurt. So I think that we haven't seen them commit to this plan, but we've seen other teams do it. You like this quarterback. You want to see how good he can do. Give him the most help and the most weapons you can, and we'll see how he develops that way. Their defense is still an absolute tragedy. They need to invest in that. But this is a team that has, for the bulk of its history, prided itself on its defense. You're going to need to work on that. But you think Eberflus has coached up good defense, has coached up players to be better than the sum of their parts in the past. So I would think you're going to need the players on offense scheme it around on defense. But this team, I think, has a better short-term future than the Packers.
They have picks and somewhere in the region of $100 million in available cap space. Chicago, listen and listen good. I know that you, as a franchise and as a city, are defense first. This is not the time for this. This is a multi-year rebuild. Let's focus on offense first. Let's get better players around Justin Fields to find out if his dynamism in the run game can also be reciprocated in the passing game. Don't go half and half here. Don't be afraid to be fun next year, but not good. Don't be afraid to be the Detroit Lions this year. Score 35 points a game, fine. Concede 35 points a game, fine. Like get that red zone in, but let's get Justin Fields weapons and pieces around him that allow him to thrive. You have almost lucked out this year in finding out that he's good. But in week 4, if we would have thought we were going to have this conversation, we would have called ourselves liars. Because in week 4, everyone was like, well, Fields is done because they do not know how to use him in any way. They do now. So now, help him more. That should be your job. Don't do a little bit there and a bit more on defense and whatever. No. Get the best wide receiver in the draft. Go and get another wide receiver. Go and get another tight end. fix that offensive line, and then we could be in business.
I think it's as I say, you look at the number of young quarterbacks over the last half decade who their best seasons was when they were surrounded by weapons. Carson Wentz, as a rookie, was terrible. But who was he thrown to? Paul Turner and Dorial Green Beckham. So they got Alshon Jeffrey, Torrey Smith, and they had Zach Ertz and Brent Selleck, and they mixed in the ground game. Great. The Bills, Josh Allen, they went and got Stephon Diggs. Jalen Hurts, the Eagles again. So what do? They draft Devonta Smith and they sign A.J. Brown. The Baltimore Ravens, you look at them, expecting Lamar Jackson to be perfect and are giving him nothing.
Yeah.
There's the cautionary tale, Chicago. Don't do that.
From optimism to pessimism, the Arizona Cardinals, this has got to be full blow-up situation.
I don't see how it can't be. I just think this is a completely dysfunctional situation. I think the head coach is outmatched. I think he has proven that he is out of his depth. I don't know how the general manager still has a job. And I think Kyler Murray hates the fact that he signed the contract and has to play there. Because everything that comes out of the front office, it's anti-Kyler. I'm not saying he's perfect, because I don't think he is. I think when you get paid that amount of money, a certain level of excellence is expected of you, and he's not delivered it. His body language on the field is terrible. It's not what I expect from a leader of men. All the Call of Duty, XP, all the jokes, they're all very, very funny. They've all been played out now. This is now a franchise that has committed itself to the quarterback that I don't think they like. So I don't know why they paid him. And it's a team that consistently looks at tweeners on defense and says, "Ooh, we don't know what to do with them. Let's draft them." Yeah, but you can't do anything with them. It's like trying to teach a dog Japanese. You're just going to piss the dog off and not get what you want out of it. So I don't understand why they keep doing this. So the only way to stop doing this is clean house. Does that make them better next year? Well, it depends who they get in. But this is one of those, a few years ago, franchise quarterbacks did not get traded. Didn't happen because you were stupid to do it. It happens now. This is not a marriage that I can see lasting beyond the next 3 seasons. It would not stun me if Kyler Murray was elsewhere in 2024. Because teams now will just look and say, "Do you know what? Balls to it. Take the cap hit. It's not our. We don't want the problem anymore."
Name talented players on that roster. Kyler Murray, Hopkins on the downside, JJ Watt on the serious downside,
Buda Baker being asked to do too
Baker. much. That's it. The offensive line's terrible. Defensive line ain't much better.
I've never been a big Marquise Brown fan.
No, we've done our Hollywood Brown jokes to death.
Yeah. Love Zach Ertz, but let's be honest.
Yeah,
he's closer to the end.
Correct. So they have a coach who, okay, they started well last year and whatever, but in the grand scheme of things, this was a guy who was fired from Texas Tech and was willing to take the offensive coordinator's job at USC. And at that same moment, then was hired as the head coach of an NFL franchise after never coaching in the NFL. And now we're kind of, this isn't working, I wonder why. Because of really bad decision making. So, okay, let's think again. Where does really bad decision making come from? Probably the GM. So Steve Keim, who's been there probably as bad as long as we've been watching the NFL. Gotta go. See ya. Bidwell, do your job. Do you know what I mean? The trigger fingers on some of your mates and owners, and yours sitting on your hands. Who doesn't like Kyler Murray? I don't know, but it's quite clear that someone doesn't. As you quite rightly said, it's very clear that they don't like him. You paid him, and he has so much talent if utilised correctly. And right now, he's utilised tremendously badly. And you still decided to pay him. Get an adult in the room. Get an adult head coach and a smart, organised offensive coordinator, and you might be getting somewhere.
It's as everyone says, his best plays when he goes off script. Well, if he has to keep going off script, that tells me the script isn't very good.
Correct. Let's move on to a team that grabbed the ring and is now paying the ultimate price for it, and that is the Los Angeles Rams. They won a Super Bowl, so whatever we think about decisions they've made in the past worked, because the aim of the game is to win the Super Bowl. However, this could be an absolute mess for the next few years unless some serious thought processes are doing. And in my opinion, serious thoughts are not, let's give 3 ones for Brian Burns.
This team is going to be bad for a few years now because they won the Super Bowl. Hats off to them for it. We all remember it. They went... I don't think all in adequately describes what they put in to win that Super Bowl. But I'll tell you this. When they are good again, Sean McVay won't be coaching them because he got them the pot of gold. This is an era that's ending. Might be this season, it might be next, but they'll all go together. McVay, Stafford, Donald. If they want to have any picks in 2023, by the way, they're going to have to trade Jalen Ramsey and hope his name value carries something around the league, because his play certainly doesn't. Because I don't think they're going to be able to trade. Well, again, we talked about the talent on the Cardinals. Who could you possibly trade to try and acquire some draft resources? Cup? They're not going to do that. That would be ridiculously stupid. As stupid as that would be stupider than anything they've done to go all in to win. To trade away Cup would be to go all in to lose. And I don't think they're that stupid. Because despite the fact they won the Super Bowl, I still don't think LA are as committed to this team or the Chargers as they'd like. They're still the visitors in the home stadium.
This is a concern, right? And this is a concern for both franchises, because if we stick with the Rams, they're the only one who actually has an LA footprint. The Chargers do not. The Rams were here previously, although it was a long time ago. But right now they don't have they don't have a fan base of note, as it's still probably a Raiders town. And well, it's a Lakers and Dodgers town, really. But anyway.
Ironically, 2 teams that they imported.
Ironically, yeah. It's how West Coast franchises were born, mate. But they are, if they're bad for many years, LA fans don't stand for crap teams. They just won't watch them. So this is a major thing. McVay's the interesting one, right?
Still in the concussion protocol.
I'm surprised he's not dead. Honest to God, that guy's helmet must have nearly took his head off. I like Kirk Herbstreit, the college commentator. I think he is excellent on ABC and ESPN broadcasts relating to college football, because his skill set is college football. Tell me why Jeff Bezos isn't giving Sean McVay $200 million to sit next to Al Michaels and do Thursday Night Football for Amazon Prime.
I can't.
Why, when you can get smashed in the head by a rookie with his helmet, would Sean McVay not think, this is going to be hard work and I can come back whenever I want and do this again? Because right now, I've won a Super Bowl and been to another one, and I am still the youngest head coach in the NFL right now.
Or, and even better than that, I can wait every winter to hear my name linked with every high-profile job offering and get a pay rise from Fox, Amazon, CBS, whoever it is.
Yeah, it's what we, friend of the show, Neil, Dick Vermeil, went down this avenue, worked out all right for him. I would expect Sean McVay to do something very similar, with probably less tears.
Mm-hmm.
Final team, Neil, who are close to imploding, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I think might not have a quarterback, a head coach, and offensive coordinator by the end of the season.
When Michael Corleone
One for the kids here.
assumed command of the Corleone family, one of the first things he did was remove Tom Hagen as consigliere and said that Carlo Rizzi was going to be his right-hand man when they made the family move out to Vegas. Tom Hagen asked why, he felt betrayed, upset, usurped. And the answer that Michael gave him was, "You're just not a wartime consigliere, Tom." That's Todd Bowles, ladies and gentlemen. Excellent defensive coordinator. This is his second go-round as a head coach. While the talent he has at his disposal this time is much better than when he was at the Jets, he's making the same mistakes. You coached anticipating that Tom Brady might throw an interception in the fourth quarter of a tied game, so you didn't use your timeout. Tom Brady hasn't thrown a fourth quarter interception in a tied game since the Obama administration. What the actual hell are you talking about? This team, as I say, has had a talent drain, more through attrition than anything else. These players the offensive line's taken a beating. Tom Brady has had this air of someone who this season really hasn't been fun.
I think his life hasn't been fun, right? He has not enjoyed probably the last 12 months of his life.
Probably not, but money makes, no one's ever looked unhappy on a yacht. So this is another situation where, as I say, when Brady goes, you're going to be bad. Because you're going to have Brady, Mike Evans starting to look old and doesn't seem to go at full speed anymore. He just, pardon the pun, walks gingerly.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin's a beast. The tight ends are all a bit, The defense is getting older. And, it just looks like, again, they went all in. They shot the shot. They won a Super Bowl. They won a division title. Congratulations. Not going to be their problem when they're bad.
What a bizarre franchise the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are. 2 Super Bowl victories and a lot of garbage in between. Congratulations on the Super Bowls. Amazing. The rest of the stuff, well, you would probably accept it if you get the Super Bowls, right? You signed Tom Brady and won a Super Bowl. That's a deal with the devil. And sometimes you've got to pay for it. Right, and this sounds like they're going to pay for it. Okay, that's fine.
The Buccaneers, back in 2003 and 2 years ago, are the ultimate. You can win a Super Bowl, but you suck for a decade or more. Do you take it?
Correct.
And both times they said yes. It's like they were asked it first time, they took it, and then it was like, it was quite good. But and then the genie arrived again and said, "Do you want to double or quit?" And they said again, went, "Yeah, okay."
The New England Patriots have normalized winning all the time. It's not normal. You're supposed to have ebbs and flows, ups and downs. 13-3s followed a few years later by 3-13s, or now 4-13s. So this is normal. Okay, maybe it doesn't happen 2 years after a Super Bowl, but those things happen. But excellent jobs by Bill Belichick, by the Pittsburgh Steelers, by Andy Reid have shown that we've normalized winning 10+ games a year. It's not normal. As someone whose team hasn't won 10+ games in about 30 years, I understand this to be the case. Let's move on, Neil. I've got a few questions in my mind, and I'd like you to answer them for me.
Time now for the main event.
We mentioned him briefly in our tweaks or blow up on the NFC edition. Is Christian Watson going to be a serious fantasy pick next season?
It depends what you mean by serious. I can't imagine taking him in the first or second round of a fantasy draft, even if you want to go wide receiver heavy, because, again, at the moment, there's too much uncertainty. Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? Well, if it is, we know that he wants to run a slow-ass offense. They don't want to run a lot of plays. They want to lean on the ground game, so you're banking on efficiency. At the moment, he's not efficient. He just scores a lot of touchdowns. I know that sounded stupid, but people know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Get off my back. So I can't imagine he's going to be Devontae Adams. Could he have a 10 to 15 touchdown season if he is the number one guy for Aaron Rodgers? Probably. But he might not get 1,000 yards, 1,100 yards with it. So, and if it's Jordan Love, then I don't know. So I think he'll be one of those that if you land him as your second, but probably you probably feel better with your third wide receiver in 2023, you'll feel quite happy with it. But if he's your first, I don't think you're going to be too pleased with life.
Second question. Can the San Francisco 49ers catch the Minnesota Vikings for the number 2 seed in the NFC?
The big problem with the San Francisco 49ers since Kyle Shanahan assumed control is we know their offense is going to score points because they're well schemed. We know what he can do with a variety of quarterbacks. The one other thing that they've done, and they probably lead the league in this category, I don't know, I haven't got the numbers in front of me, they probably lead the league in the number of serious and season-ending injuries suffered to their star players. And all of a sudden, a few weeks ago, it looked like, look at them. Jimmy G is executing at a high level. You've got Brandon Ayuk, who's magically efficient. Debo starting to look like himself. Oh, George Kittle not blocking so much anymore. And now you add in Christian McCaffrey and you've got Eli Mitchell. Great. We are kicking. We've got a great defense. We're rolling. The Eagles are reeling. The Cowboys are meh. The Vikings, it's only always a close game. And then what happens? Eli Mitchell out for 6 weeks and Christian McCaffrey dealing with knee irritation. Join the club, pal. They could catch the Vikings because the Vikings showed that I don't think they want to, but they have to. It seems to be in their DNA. They have to play close games. Look what happens when they play a team at the height of its powers. They get their arse kicked. This is what the Cowboys did to them. I think if you look at the run-in, the Vikings are going to have to start upping their game because they're fizzing a little bit without looking completely dangerous. Their defense is a worry. The San Francisco 49ers defense is playing very well. Their offense is starting to lose pieces. So I do think they can catch them. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but I also wouldn't be surprised if in the next 2 weeks the 49ers lose another cornerstone piece of their offense and we're all scratching our heads saying, well, what do they do now?
Final question, Neil. Does Jalen Hurts get paid before Lamar Jackson?
Yep, because the Eagles seem to love Jalen Hurts, and I don't think the Ravens love Lamar Jackson. It goes back to what I said. What did the Eagles do for Jalen Hurts? They surrounded him with weapons. What the Ravens done with Lamar Jackson? Surrounded him with the finest excuses for wide receivers the CFL had to offer. If you're relying on a 35-year-old Deshaun Jackson for your big plays, you're in trouble.
What a big play it was, though. Did it
was a great play.
Did it not take you back to the olden days? It was beautiful.
He has caught a 50-yard pass from 13 different quarterbacks in his career. Absolutely fantastic. But look at what Lamar has to do. At the start of the season, I think in the first 4 weeks, he had something like 10 total touchdowns. His quarterback passer rating was high. He wasn't throwing interceptions. Over his last 8 weeks, he has 8 total touchdowns, and he's throwing interceptions like they're going out of fashion. Mark Andrews, you can't drop the ball when you're the only person we can be banked on this offense. Josh Oliver, they schemed up a Josh Oliver revenge game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Who gives a shit? The cartel of running backs this team is trotting out, it's not up to it. It's not good enough. They are expecting Lamar Jackson to pull miracles out of his arse, and they're basically saying to him, well, you won an MVP, didn't you? Whereas the Eagles are sort of looking at Jalen Hurts and saying, okay, we probably didn't expect this, but you've delivered. You clearly love the game. You're meeting us halfway. So, okay, let's roll with it.
Before we move on, the best story I saw this week in relation to Lamar Jackson was that Greg Roman was linked with the vacant Stanford job in college. The sooner that dude gets away from Lamar Jackson, the better.
I think as well, Lamar Jackson could do with taking on some vitamins or drinking some, taking some
Man gets sick. That man gets sick more than you used to. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, good God! It's literally I've never been to the Ravens training facility, as this may shock people, but it must be like every morning when he turns up. All right, Lamar, how's it going? Oh, it's not too bad, and everyone should go, oh Jesus, he's off again.
Let's get on with the fancy portion of the show and start with Fancy Darling.
Hello, darling.
Off last week, but let's recap week 11. Neil was 1-1, 8-14 overall. Picked Daniel Jones, who was QB5, 24.6 points. That's a win. Did pick Cole Kmet, tight end 17, 6.5 points. That's a loss. Neil, who have you got this week? First pick, please.
First pick this week, it's a quarterback. It's Trevor Lawrence. Now, it may surprise people because the narrative around Trevor Lawrence this season has probably been that he's not been good. And this is where we get the wonderful divergence between real life and fantasy, because Trevor Lawrence is the quarterback 9 in terms of fantasy points this year, while playing shit for most of it. But in his last 3 games, when he has looked solid, he's averaging 25 fantasy points in that time. He's got an absolutely wonderful matchup this week against the Detroit Lions, who pace the league in terms of friendliness to quarterbacks. Over the last 5 games, the Lions have allowed 286 yards and almost 2 passing scores per game. So if you need a quarterback this week, I think he's on a roster in more than 50% of NFL.com leagues, but he's only starting in about a quarter of them. So if he's on your waiver wire, get him. If he's on your bench, start him.
Jacksonville versus the Lions in a week that has a absolute boatload of great games, has a chance to be a sneaky red zone piece of genius. Start all your players. Anyone from those 2 franchises who is in your roster, get them in immediately.
Even Evan Ingram, who's gone missing for the last month, get him in. The Lions are terrible to tight ends. You've got the DJ Chark revenge narrative as well for the Lions. Zay Jones all of a sudden is Jerry Rice. Who knew? Get them all in. Start them wherever you can.
Just briefly, we obviously didn't do Thanksgiving, but I won my Dynasty matchup on Thursday as I had 3 wide receivers. Sun God, Stephon Diggs, CD Lamb. Thank you and good night.
That's living right.
Second pick, Neil.
Second pick, we'll go for a defense this week, and we'll go with the Seattle Seahawks. They're not the Legion of Boom. They're not. They are 4th in defensive takeaways, and they have 9 interceptions this season. They'll probably add many to this tally because they're playing the LA Rams this week. Now, as we know, the Rams are slowly shutting down. Aaron Donald's going to miss a game for the first time in his career. Bryce Perkins, I think, is still playing at quarterback. I don't care who's at running back, and I don't give a shit who the wide receivers are. The Rams have absorbed 38 sacks so far this season, and 15% of their offensive drives end in a turnover. So if you need a defense this week, I think you could do an awful lot worse than the Seahawks.
Let's talk about Fancy Loser. Lost in week 11. Picked Swift, running back 19, 12.2 points. That's a loss. 4-7 overall, Neil. Let's get back on track. Who is your pick this week?
Pick this week is Cordarrelle Patterson, who people are probably excited about because of how dynamic a playmaker he can be when he gets his opportunities. The problem is he's not getting the opportunities anymore. In week 12, he played just over half the snaps and had 11 carries, which was the exact same number as Tyler Algier.
It's a shame.
He's also not, I'm sure it is, yeah. He's also not being used as a receiver anymore because Arthur Smith hates fun. It's not a terrible matchup because the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is trash. It's middle of the road to running backs, which, Cordarrelle Patterson in theory is, but he's just not getting the usage. So we're banking on touchdowns, but he doesn't score that many. So if you have him, I don't think you can trust him this week.
This billionaire pisses me off. Refuses to give it to his best players on a regular basis. He needs to do one immediately. As this division
is there for the absolute taking. They lose a heartbreaker to the Manders, and they've just got to get on board because the other teams in this division are garbage. I mean, there's a possibility that the Carolina Panthers could make the playoffs at this rate, which is a joke.
God, I hope they do. The problem with Arthur Smith as well is he feeds into this narrative that fantasy football players, you don't understand the game. We're not trying to play fantasy football out here. No, fantasy footballers and the fantasy football managers and drafters and whatnot, they know that if you give your best players the ball, you can score points. Look at Miami for details. Whereas what you want to do, billionaire dickhead, is almost cut your nose off to spite your face and show you can't prove to me anything. I was the mastermind behind the dominant Tennessee Titans offense, so I'll not pass to Kyle Pitts. I mean, Kyle Pitts had, a target share of 40%? Yeah, but when that's 5 targets, it doesn't help anyone. Drake London, who you spent a top 10 pick on, and you're targeting Olamide Zacchaeus 9 times. Yeah, I really hope you do win your division, because you've played yourself out of quarterback purgatory, and Marcus Mariota, this shit's going to get old very quickly next season. So please, continue.
I love the idea that he would probably use the Tennessee Titans situation when 50% of the plays were handoffs to Derrick Henry, and the other 50% were slants to A.J. Brown. The 2 best effing players on your offense. How is this complicated? It's not.
Desmond Ridder in practice must look like terrible. Absolute horse shit. I mean, this touching faith that Arthur Smith has in Marcus Mariota. I noticed that this faith didn't manifest itself when you were involved in benching him for the Titans to get Ryan Tannehill in. So I don't understand. Are you saying that if you'd had Mariota back then, you'd have won the Super Bowl? Because that's what it looks like you're trying to tell us now.
Let's get on to fancy predictions bound to go wrong. 2 weeks ago, I said Isaiah Pacheco would be a top 3 running back. He had 15 carries for 107 yards. That's good. He had 0 touchdowns, so he's RB23. Touchdowns matter, ladies and gentlemen. Touchdowns matter. That's a loss. Neil said that Justin Herbert would be quarterback 1. He wasn't. He was quarterback 11, 19.7 points in a loss.
That's 2 1s, isn't it?
That is 2 1s. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean you win twice. That just means that you got it wrong. But thanks for playing along. We've got 2 predictions right this season on Fancy Predictions Bound to Go Wrong, which is good because we are, swinging for the fences. I'm going to go first. I believe the Green Bay Packers should start Jordan Love. And I believe that based on that, Christian Watson will be a top 3 wide receiver this week. The 3rd time Christian Watson's been mentioned on this show. It's insanity. Keeping that touchdown look going, let's get Christian Watson as a top 3 wide receiver this week.
The Houston Texans are one of the sorriest excuses for an NFL team I've ever seen. Ironically, the last expansion team is playing like an expansion team this year. This week they're playing the Cleveland Browns, for whom I believe Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt will both rush for 100 yards and score a touchdown, which will help them both finish as RB1s.
Nice. You can run on that team so easily. It's absolutely frightening. And Chubb is probably the best pure runner in the NFL right now, with the exception of your quarterback.
I'd rather watch Chubb than Jalen, to be honest. Don't be wrong, I like watching Jalen, especially when the Packers, it almost surprised them that he can run. They're just like, oh shit, should we not take into account of this? Whereas Nick Chubb literally runs like he's pissed off with the world and he's going to inflict pain and punishment upon them.
What I like about the Jalen Hurts situation is in the last 2 weeks, he ran down the field. He didn't throw down the field against the Colts, and no one decided we best put a spy on him. as he walked into the end zone, it basically walked, and no one was within 10 yards of him to win the game. And then he ran for all over the Packers, as you said. And I would, if I was an owner / a GM, I would have brought both defensive coordinators in and said, okay, I would like you to explain how many hours of Jalen Hurts footage you'd watched, because based on what I saw, it was none. Because he wants to run, so what were you doing? Anyway, that is it for week 13. Neil, before we're back next week, where can people find you?
Follow me on Twitter at Ndutton13. Find my stuff at Numberfire, Rotoviz, Player Profiler, 4for4, and the latest edition of the Gridiron magazine, where I write about tight ends.
Even after John Daigle basically subtweeted you 2 days ago, which was beautiful. That must have hit.
I thought we were friends as well.
I am at Mainty7. Combined, we are at waxing_lyrical. Other podcast, The Touchdown Review, brought to you by thetouchdown.co.uk. Out already. I spoke to Callum, Taib, Thomas, and Joe, all through euphoria of US men's national team and England football. Tried to keep them calm, tried to get them to talk about the NFL. And I think I did. And we got someone to say that they don't believe the Bucks are going to make the playoffs, which was super awesome. Give it a listen. That is it for us. These top guys are out. See you next week.